record. Yeah, but yeah, I'm currently here at Whitehead Institute at Jinko Wang's lab, studying various projects related to plant secondary metabolism and natural products. So yeah, I'm in my third year in PhD in biological engineering program at MIT now. So I graduated from UCSB back in 2018, and then I moved across the country to be here in Massachusetts. So
it's a big move.
yeah. The original plan was to stay in California, but I always wondered what the other side, like the East Coast, felt like. So I was like, oh, you know, better timing than best timing to do that during your 20s, I guess, to explore around. So
yeah, of course. So I wanted to ask you, what are your career goals after you get your PhD?
Yeah, so when I initially came to UCSB, I switched majors a couple times actually. I came in initially as psychology major, and then I switched to biopsychology, and then I switched to chemical engineering, and then from there I also switched into CCS chemistry and biochemistry. And kind of it's kind of like a journey throughout undergrad, but I've very much enjoyed the scientific research community and the whole process of thinking about questions, coming up with interesting hypotheses and scientific questions in regards to, discoveries in basic science, and using those foundational knowledge to create new tools to study biology and to apply them into industrial research too. So I've always had like a passion for academic research ever since my time at UCSB during undergrad. So yeah, my goal and my career aspirations after getting my PhD is to continue to do research as a postdoctorate, a researcher, and then potentially if opportunity arises, then I would love to lead my own research lab at like a research institute. So yeah, that's the aspiration and the hope. Yeah, I really enjoy working with people, and I enjoy like mentoring students too. Also love like it's really fun. I mean, COVID has made it a little bit challenging to collaborate with people, but I really enjoy collaborating with people too, and just designing experiments, thinking about those things. So that's kind of something that I'm exploring at the moment. Yeah.
Oh. So what experiences in undergrad shape your career path?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I loved my time at UCSB, not only because our campus is on the beach and the weather is really nice, so it really motivates you to go outside and get some work done too. But my time at UCSB during undergrad really shaped my passion for that, and especially like passion for biomedical research through the mentorship that I had. So I worked in Dr. Irene Chen's lab in the Department of Biochemistry, Chemistry and Biochemistry, and she actually ended up moving to UCLA recently with a tenure. But during my time at in the Chen lab, I was able to get really exposed to like the beauty and the joy of scientific research. So I got to experience what it looked like to take on an independent project, think through how to design experiments. So I worked with bacteriophages, specifically filamentous bacteriophage M13, and I tried to, one of my first projects was to try to quantify how many of these bacteriophages are found in human skin, in hopes of trying to identify the phage communities in different skin ulcers, skin wounds like diabetic foot ulcers and abscesses. So yeah, these types of projects and the mentorship that Irene and also graduate student mentor Sam and postdoc mentors Fu and Juan provided for me, really like, made a path for me to experience and yeah, have that joy in research. So that was really fun. And I think the transformative experience that I had throughout my undergrad was through two different programs. One of them is MARC, which you're familiar with. So the MARC program really allowed me to have the flexibility and the creativity and freedom to explore research as if like kind of like, it not only gives you funding for you to like not worry about financials and other things like that, but also through like workshops and the programs like the professional development programs. Also that first summer that we get to spend as a MARC scholar on campus at UCSB, that really taught me like the foundational skills in terms of presenting my research, being able to read research papers, being able to write and communicate my science well. So all of that kind of not only like, research work in the lab, but beyond that, I think that program really helped shape where I am now. And then also the second program called the Amgen Scholars Program that I was able to do at Stanford, kind of through MARC as well. I was kind of intertwined together. But that program also really shaped my passion for synthetic biology and the intersection of synthetic biology and biomedical chemistry. So I was working in Dr. Christina Smokey's lab at Stanford, working on protein engineering for yeast metabolic engineering for production of benzoyl isoquinone alkaloid compounds, kind of like opioid derivatives, opioid compounds. So that experience was also very transformative because it not only really took my skills in science and being able to communicate science to another level, but also really got to experience what close mentorship looks like, how to really take ownership of a project and be able to approach and diagnose your project and troubleshoot when things aren't working, and then also experience like the joy and breakthrough too when things start working. So those are like experiences as an undergrad that are harder to find, I think. But yeah, I've had the honor and the privilege to be able to experience those things as an undergrad, and now as a graduate student, I still have those things and experience those things, and those come new whenever I experience it. But it's like a similar kind of feeling when you are stuck in your project or when you receive those breakthroughs too. So I think those were like the transformative experiences that I had as an undergrad.
Right. I'm kind of the same way. My first internship was in the Eureka program at UCSB, and that really got me introduced to research, and it started me on this huge path. And this is something that I'm also a little bit having trouble with. But how do you maintain a relationship with your mentor? How do you cultivate that community in research?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think kind of like I see this question as like, what kind of advices would I give to like a fellow undergrad that may be going through like their first or second or research experience in undergrad. And I would suggest them to be very proactive, because now as like I guess like a graduate student mentor type of I guess perspective now, I can see that I would personally would greatly love to work with undergrads that are very proactive, passionate about the research, and think beyond just the allotted time that you have in the lab. It really shows that motivation and the drive to stay focused and driven on the project that you're working on. So I think that is like one advice that I would give in terms of staying connected with your mentor. And then also yeah, another thing to stay connected with your mentor and go deeper in that kind of like mentorship relationship is to be very honest with where you are. So I think oftentimes it's scary to ask questions, right? Like,
Yeah.
professors say there's never like a silly question or a dumb question, but it like it's a fact that as undergrads, as like students that are still learning and still growing in our character as scientists, like it is scary to ask questions and be honest with where you are at. Like, if you don't know how to load like your PCR fragment onto a gel, for example, and you end up breaking and puncturing the gel, right? Like I think it's you go onto that kind of like deeper sense of connection and mentorship level when you're able to kind of ask for help and reach out for any questions that you may have about your project. And um, yeah, I really think that is like one of the ways that you can go deeper with your mentors, is to like be humble, be honest, and have humility in the way that you approach like scientific research. So yeah.
It's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question about how you went about applying to PhD programs and how you finally decided to settle at MIT.
Yeah, that's also a very good question. So it actually feels not too long ago. It feels just like yesterday when I applied to PhD programs, and I'm like now getting to see some of my undergrad mentees in my laboratory that are applying to PhD programs and doing interviews. So it's always like interesting and very exciting season to see. Um, so how I went about applying to PhD programs and actually deciding to do things too, and we can chat more as you also apply to PhD programs too. But I essentially sat down and talked to the advisors that I was working with. So Irene Chen and Christina, and I told them what my interests were in terms of research topics, and I gathered some resources in terms of which programs might be the most uh, like ideal fit for me that aligned with my interests. Um, and I also attended like workshops that MARC program offered, like the CSEP program offered, and the Amgen Scholars Program offered, and a lot of them were actually emphasizing research interests, and then also like advisor fit. So like how well you can work with your advisor, what type of advising style would you like? Would it be like kind of more like on and off, kind of like offhand or on hand mentorship? Um, and then also location was pretty important to me too. So like I said earlier, I thought that I was gonna stay in California, so I applied to mostly California programs. And then I knew that here in Cambridge and Boston, the greater Boston area in Massachusetts, there's a very like big population of biotechs here. And I was personally interested in synthetic biology, so I applied to some of the programs here in Boston as well. But yeah, I think it really boiled down to some of the faculty members that I really wanted to work with closely for graduate school. And PhD is uh, for 5 to 6 years, like on average, right, for fields in like biomedical science. And I knew that this was kind of like a long commitment. It's like a marathon. So I knew that I needed to be in a place where I really wanted to work on something that I really enjoyed and was passionate about. So I identified programs that had faculty member and the research type of like focus around synthetic biology and the cross section of synthetic biology and biomedicine too, and identified a couple schools that had strong programs in those areas that I was interested in. and then and then I discussed with my PIs and heard from their advice, and then went with that. In terms of how I chose MIT bioengineering program, so I actually applied like pretty broadly. So like UCSF, I applied for chemistry. Stanford, I applied for bioengineering. And then, most bioengineering schools, but like UCSF was chemistry. Harvard was BBS, which was biology and biomedical sciences programs. So it was kind of broad. And the reason why I applied broadly was because I wanted to be in a program where it housed, or I guess had, the primary faculties that did the research that I wanted to do. So that's what I ended up doing. And then when I came to, I think really, because I thought I was going to stay in California, but the interview aspect of the application where you actually get to travel, I mean, it looks different now with COVID, but before COVID, we would be able to be invited to travel over to the actual campus, get to meet one-on-one with the faculty that you're interested in, and then also get to meet like the cohort and meet like, the department head and the advisors for the program. And when I came to MIT, you just have this kind of like gut feeling. It was my last interview. And I just had this like gut feeling that even though I love California and I love the California weather, like I really wanted to be challenged in like getting outside of my comfort zone as not just a scientist, but just as like a human being. I wanted to challenge myself to be in a new place and get to know new people, new cultures. And then also at the same time, I really enjoyed my conversations that I had with the faculty members and also my cohort as well. And then I also felt like I could grow a lot as a scientist here in Cambridge and at MIT as well. So that was basically the biggest factor that played into a role. I think just like overall atmosphere and my experience during the interview. And it was pretty clear to me after that interview weekend that I really wanted to be here. So yeah, it's a very exciting process, and I'm excited for you to go through it.
Yeah, even thinking about it, it seems so crazy at how far I've come. So I totally understand how you feel. Like it feels like yesterday I was just in high school applying to colleges, and now I'm here.
Yeah. Time flies, and I think because of the coronavirus, like, it's sad that like, the whole world has been shaken up, but because of that, I think we kind of lost track of time, and time is just, life is continuing on, and time is still ticking, and then it's kind of hard to adjust, but yeah.
Okay. That was actually all the questions that I had to ask you, so I would just stop the recording.
Yeah.